Well, good afternoon, councillors, staff and members of the public who join us in person and online. I'll officially open the meeting at 1 o'clock. In doing so, I wish to acknowledge and pay respect to the Tasmanian Aboriginal people as the traditional and original owners and continuing custodians of this land on which we gather today. And I acknowledge elders past and present. Please be seated. In opening the meeting, we have one apology from our Mayor, Councillor Albert Van Zetten. We also are reminded that we are recording this meeting, so that if we could please ensure that our phones are switched to silent. Item 2 is the mayoral acknowledgements, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to recognise the multitude of members of our staff who have been involved in the most recent flood event. I think it's appropriate that we acknowledge the work of our staff. And I'm sure, councillors, you would agree that the way that our staff came together to support our community against the threat of flooding without any hesitation, some working overnight, giving up weekends, staff from all areas of council going above and beyond to provide a great response to our community. At the peak, there were some 100 staff who were involved, and we certainly want to acknowledge all of them. The teamwork that they showed throughout, and they continue to show with our response, which I think has been exceptional, including not only those staff who have directly been working with regard to the threat of the floods, but indeed those that have been stepping in to support or cover people who have been directly involved. And I think in terms of our values, the way that that speaks to us serving our community is certainly, and caring for our community has certainly been on display. So wanted to recognise all of those on display. So wanted to recognise all of those staff, from those who became part of the incident management team last Tuesday, up to those who, as I say, at the peak, 100 staff who've been working directly with regard to our response, customer service staff working into the evening, people working 24/7, weekends, and indeed at the evacuation centre, which was open with staff present 24/7. And of course, on Monday, when the recovery started, crews doing cleanups, the formal recovery commencement with council officers supporting our community, and we note that the recovery efforts are ongoing. So CEO, to you and to the members of the incident management team, to Linda, to all of the staff who have been involved, we say a hearty thanks and well done. Item 3 is declaration of interest. Do any councillors have any material or general conflicts? Councillor Dawkins. 13.1, thank you. Councillor Mackenzie. 17.2, thank you so much. 17.3. Confirmation of the minutes, item 4. Someone to move that the minutes of the meeting on the 5th of October be confirmed as a true and correct record. Thank you, Councillor Spencer. A seconder? Councillor Soward, thank you. All those in favour raise their hand. That is all councillors present, and the motion is carried. Thank you. There being no council workshops at 5, no requests for leave of absence, the final meeting of the term at 6. Next 4 years, maybe? We'll talk about that later. We'll go to item 7, community reports, and we welcome David Higgins, the CEO of Crime Stoppers Tasmania, to provide an update. David, welcome to you.
Thank you very much. My name is David Higgins and I'm the CEO of Crime Stoppers Tasmania, and have been so for only 2.5 months, so it's a good opportunity for me to engage my own city and to inform you about Crime Stoppers. So Crime Stoppers has been around for more than 25 years, Tasmania. We are part of a community that creates Crime Stoppers Australia with every other jurisdiction, and we're part of the global network of Crime Stoppers International. But down in our part here, to give you a bit of information about what we do, we act as a conduit between the community and law enforcement. However, that's traditionally police.
David, your microphone is playing up. Would you like to come in and just head toward the end of the... Is that okay? Yep. Thank you.
So, got me? Yes, that's much better. So with that conduit between the community, and it's still doing it, and the police. It might be my voice. How's that?
No.
Technical.
Testing. Yeah, okay. It's shaking. I'll push on because
Great.
you know, you got a lot in front of you. That is an important role to secure information out of the community where they can do so safely and securely and anonymously wherever possible. We receive over 4,000 reports from our community across the state annually, which is about 10 to 12 a day. And they are submitted 24 hours a day, either via phone to a operator or online, which is where the path is heading these days. So we'll see a greater engagement as Crime Stoppers now, with 2 months into the gig. We're looking to expand our focus and encourage more and more people from our community to share the information with the police, and that will allow our policing agents to become more intelligence-led in their actions. There we go. 3 minutes.
Great. Thank you. David, we wish you all the best in your role, and we note that Council has been a partner to Crime Stoppers on many initiatives, and we look forward to that continuing into the future. Thanks so much. Item 8 is public question time. We begin at 8.1, public questions on notice. Mr. Khan, would you like to come forward? (8.2) Public questions without notice. Just your name and address before the question.
Brian Khan, 2 Hobbs Bridge Road, Newstead. Mr. Deputy Mayor, the writer served on the Launceston Flood Protection Authority in the 1960s. Errol Cooper from the Corporation Stores was coordinator with Hilton Brooks from Holloman's, Max Yoss from FH Stevens, both transport companies, Jeff Deneen from Tasron, most importantly Jack Edwards from Marine Board and Captain McKenzie, and myself from the oil industry. All the others are deceased, I'm afraid. Eric Rees, the then Premier, instituted the building of the flood walls. Engineers told him 1929 flood came over at Royal Park. Premier Rees was able to refute this and prove the flood came over at Mackenzie Street and Foster Streets, as he was living in Windsor Street, just south of Foster Street. The Premier strongly supported the Marine Board dredging the Tamar, Jack Lee being the dredge master. Jack Edwards via Captain Mackenzie, but 2 strong tugs with large rakes made at Glasgow Engineering. The Royal Park Basin was rated, you call it the yacht basin these days. Because the wall was to jet the flood down the Tamar, Premier Rees recalled the 1929, the ship Corrinui that was warning of the flood with its siren was washed up on the steps of the Rapsar Tyre Company. Premier Rees, for flood wall to be viable, the river had to be raked. This supports former Chairman Alan Birchman's strong recommendation to Public Accounts Committee with then Manager Fullard. State government, field government caused the Marine Board to pay a dividend and created mast. The added protection Launceston had with the Marine Board was lost. At a private lunch with Jack Edwards at the Northern Club, Jack envisaged a flood that would wipe out the walkway in Royal Park. A member of the Legislative Council currently has told me the river cannot be raked because of a fish farm or salmon farm down the river. Mayor, has the General Manager quantified the loss of those industries bounded by Godric Street and the Tamar River? I estimate it in the millions of dollars if flood wall is breached. And very importantly, Lance Barnard, when he was Deputy Prime Minister, managed to get funds for us out of the flood mitigation scheme. So the council has a very strong case to improve assistance from the federal and state governments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Khan. Given the depth of your question and the effort that you've gone to, I think we'll respond to you and in the minutes of the meeting, the agenda of the next meeting in writing to cover off some of those points based on the level of protection.
Well, you gentlemen would be, aldermen, would be aware of the industries that are on Inveresk at the moment, and they are very substantial industries.
That's right. So we'll take that on notice and give it the time and effort that it deserves. Thank you. Are there any additional questions without notice? Hello, welcome.
G'day. It's Ross Broomhall. I live in Eccleston Road, Riverside. I'm a member of the Launceston North East Railway, also the Launceston Tramway Museum. Just a couple of points to put across. Are you aware, this is for all aldermen, are you aware that over 2/3 of the North East Railway is steel sleepered right up until 2006? The Corula Bridge was rebuilt in 92 by Australian National Railways. And also, are you aware that the majority, 75% of the people along the line, including in Dorset and Launceston, would prefer the railway to stay as a tourist railway? Thank you.
Thank you. Individual councillors will consider those questions, noting, of course, that 9.1 has been withdrawn from today's agenda, but that the petition response is still to be considered in a subsequent agenda item.
Right, thanks.
Are there any other additional questions without notice? Thank you so much. We move to item 9, Planning Authority. Under the provisions of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993, Council acts as a planning authority in regard to items included in the agenda. Item 9, Planning Authority. Councillors would be aware that item 9.1 has been withdrawn from today's agenda. We move to item 9.2, 269 Wellington Street, bulky goods sales, demolition of existing workshop and construction of a new showroom, replacement of signage and change of use. We have a number of speakers listed. The first is Liam Nicholson. A reminder, speakers will be given 2 minutes, and when the bell rings, if you could finish up your sentence. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Liam Nicholson. I am speaking on behalf of Byron and Jenny, who live at 27 West Street. Byron, are wanting these concerns addressed before we have any more movement. They're wanting floodlights directed away from West Street homes, and West Street is concerned about being blinded by them when they're coming home at night, as there's already one that is pointing down there. Sorry. They're also wanting that the laneway that is there to stay as a laneway, as it's always been there as a laneway under the council, and even just now that they've been moved. They're going in the laneway as there's been bollards put in that were not by the council. And we're also wanting to have a noise barrier with a garden for the street appeal at the back, so stopping the noise from Wellington Street. Because we have a quiet dead-end street, and they want to keep it that way, and we're wanting to stop any car yard vehicles from gaining access to West Street. That's everything.
Great. Thanks, Liam, and thanks for persisting with our technical difficulties. The next speaker listed is Chris Cox. We're going to invite you to come in just a little further so that we avoid the feedback, if that's okay. Chris, would you mind just coming to just here?
Sorry.
We'll get rid of the chair. Councillor Dawkins might move the chair back if that's okay. Welcome.
I will stand. My name's Chris Cox. I'm representing my mother today, Sally Cannon. She's unwell at the moment, so she asked me to attend. We've been residents of West Street since 1985. It's always been a quiet, dead-end street, even though it backs onto Wellington Street. I think we can all acknowledge that Errol has done a lot for this city, and usually has community spirit in mind when he does so. In this instance, we have a lot of elderly and long-term residents that have been completely blindsided by the tearing down of these buildings that were all double brick and very old, and now it's an open car yard directly onto Wellington Street. My mother's house, I'm staying there at the moment, directly has 3 floodlights coming into her bedroom. The noise pollution that comes from Wellington Street is extensive, as you would imagine, as you're probably relatively aware of the situation on Wellington Street, I would imagine. And the aesthetics and house property values will have absolutely taken a hit. My mum's recently put $50,000 into her home and values were going up. Now you're effectively on the highway. It's very disappointing that there hasn't been more consultation. And what we've seen is the laneway has now been taken over by the car yard. It's all been asphalted. The 2 bollards that the council put there are now 5. There is a clear indication that they plan on bringing a truck down West Street. It isn't feasible or possible. Otherwise, why would you have 5 bollards? The residents are simply asking for, we can't undo what's been done, but surely a 3-metre solid, some sort of solid construction. It could be a sliding gate. It wouldn't matter. He could still have access to those, but it'd be shut off during the evening. And I think other members who do live in the street will talk more about the aesthetics of what that might look like. But for now, I urge you to drive past. I urge you to drive past and have a look at how they're impacted. And it's really caused a lot of stress. So that's all from me. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. The next speaker listed is Tim Grigg. Tim, again, if you wouldn't mind coming into the table, if that's okay.
Do you want me to speak louder and then everyone hears me?
It's just for the recording, if that's okay. Thanks,
Okay.
Tim.
No, that's fine. Look, afternoon all. I know a few faces, so good to see you. Now, as been stated before, I'm not going to go over their issues, but I agree with all those issues because the noise increase we have in West Street now, it's detracted from that beautiful heritage street. It's such a horse and cart street where it's so tight, so quiet. People think it's a one-way street because it's that narrow. And what I love is that we all take pride in that street. There's actual gardens that are out on a bit of council land that are maintained. Now, what I would love to see is, Earl Stewart could have said, this is what we're going to do. And we would have said, look, okay, if you're going to knock that building down, why don't you, 1 metre back from the back fence, put a massive, 2.5 sound deadening wall, so then we're not getting exposed to Wellington Street, and then have some sort of metre wide garden that, look, the residents would maintain. I would even go down there and do it, even though I live a little bit further up. So, and because the thing I don't like seeing is that he's put his own bollards in. Every time I see something going on, I've reported it to the council. And the sad thing is, it's just kind of he can do it. If I turned around and started doing that, I'd have everyone on my back for doing it. Now, why has he turned around and just gone because he's got all these workers under his own company and go, bang, get it done, quick, in, out. Now, the thing that I don't like is the dump trucks that have to do a 3-point turn normally before he's done what he's done, because you've got bins, imagine, on both sides, and then basically it used to go into the part of the laneway because you used to be able to park a car in the start of the laneway and then there were bollards. Now that's disappeared because he's brought them right to the front. So now the truck can't go in there. It's had to run into the gutter, which is broken bit of the gutter, and then it does his 10-point turn because it can't hit the bins. And this is at 5 in the morning. And now then you've got the recycling bin and then you've got the other one. So my concern is he has done things, changed things, and it's just made West Street where I don't want to live there now. So, look, thank you very much for listening.
Thanks,
and
Tim.
look, I would just love consultation. Now I'm saying if something can be done about
That's your time. Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, sorry. Just if we can all get together and talk about it. So
Thank you so
thank
much.
you very much. Okay.
Phaedra Avasani is listed as next. Again, if you wouldn't mind coming into the table, if that's okay. Hello, welcome.
So, I'm Phaedra Vasoni and I live in Unit 405, 16 Patterson Street. but I was a resident in West Street, 17 West Street for 19 years. So I know the place very well. And I know how passionate Tim is about the street. It's hard to explain to people how the residents feel about West Street. You have to live there to know it. But it is a special place. And so I came along to support the residents, but also to try and work out how it is that a man like Errol Stewart has poured so much money into this town over the years. And so, you know, he's brought a lot of projects to this table, I would imagine, as he would have brought this one we're protesting about. We can't do anything about the fact that he's pulled those houses down and he wants to do, I'm not quite sure what. I'm sure he's got long-term plans for it, and it would be good to know what they are. But all the residents are asking for him to do is to put something down the bottom of the street that means that access can't be given to traffic. And gosh, you know, a garden bed, for goodness sake. With all the money he spends, why is negotiating on this project, which is so, you know, well, that's really what I'm saying. I can't say any more because I haven't got time, but I just want to support the residents. They were supportive.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being with us. I have no additional speakers listed. Are there any speakers for 9.2? No, there being none. Looking for someone to move the motion, 9.2. Councillor Harris, thank you. A seconder. Councillor Walker. A question, first of all, from Councillor Spencer.
Thanks, Deputy. Yes, very concerned for the residents in that street. I think we probably should go back and try and get some barrier. And it'd be nice to know if those lights need to go north-south. They shouldn't be shining east into their properties. Those lights can be shined around. It won't be as much light on the cars, but it's not fair on the residents to have to put up with light all night. I don't like that.
What's the question, Councillor Spencer?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's possible to change the plans to actually put a barrier at the back, so all the noise barrier, if that is possible.
Thank you. Planner Ian. That's it. Thank you.
Right. There's no real scope within the provisions of the scheme to provide a barrier, noting that there is legal access from West Street.
Thank you. Further question, Councillor Spencer? CEO, thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So you had a question on lighting as well in respect of there is a condition there at number 2 that reads both the light from the light pole and the illumination from the blade sign must be baffled to prevent direction lighting from extending into adjoining properties. In terms of if there is an issue, there is legislative provision to be able to act to prevent that, just as there is with noise in respect of the Environmental Management Pollution Control Act and other, if indeed it is a nuisance. So.
Councillor Spencer, any further questions? Councillor Mackenzie, question.
Just in relation to, I think that there is a public laneway which goes down the side of the property which takes from West Street to Wellington Street. At this point in time, I don't think it looks like there's any barrier between the laneway and the development property. I'm just questioning, can we condition that there is a buffer so that vehicles aren't progressing onto the laneway when people potentially are working down there? Is that something that's able to be conditioned?
Town Planner Ian, we'll try that. Mike?
Still going.
It's okay. We'll revert to our Councillor Cox. Mike.
Condition 9, recommended condition 9 of the permit refers to site accesses and that barriers to prevent, I'll just read it. Vehicles are not permitted to access the site from the pedestrian walkway between Wellington Street and West Street. Barriers to prevent such access are to be installed prior to the commencement of the use. Probably just important to point out as well that laneway does not form part of this application.
Thank you, Ian. Any further questions, Councillor McKenzie? Councillor Dawkins' question.
Thank you. With relation to the installation of the new bollards and waste removal from West Street, do we have a sense of how installing those bollards has changed the way that refuse is removed from the street?
Not sure that that's a question for Town Planner Ian. CEO, who do you think would be best placed to answer that?
Can we find out?
Is it a relevant matter? I'm sorry to just...
Manager, Richard?
The location of the bollards in the council bollards in the council laneway are a matter for the council, and they can be moved at the discretion of the council. So they're not necessarily reliant on a planning permit for them being there. If it's the council determines that they need to be set back further into the laneway and that it's safe to do so, it can do that without reference to a planning permit.
CEO.
So to answer that question, then we can certainly review that outside of the planning permit to see that there hasn't been a problem created and look to address any problem that has. So.
The mover, Councillor Harris, do you wish to speak?
I will. Thank you, Acting Mayor or Deputy Mayor. So this planning development application is really quite straightforward, but not without its controversy. The conditions as outlined are very limited to what we can actually do. And having said that, I certainly have great sympathy for those residents at West Street, because having parked there this morning to then look and seeing what's been opened up to, it certainly is a different view to what it was there previously. So I can understand their concerns. However, as a planning authority, we must stick to what is the planning considerations that we are dealing here today. However, as many have said, Errol Stewart is a reasonable gentleman, and if you were to approach him, he may consider some of the suggestions you have made to him. He may choose not to. That's entirely his right. But it is something that is outside what we're actually doing here today. We can't force him to put an acoustic wall, as might be wanted by the residents of West Street, or in fact, we as councillors might think is a nice to have. It's not something that we in the planning scheme have the ability to force him to do. So I think it's a matter of we've got to stick to the planning scheme and assess it under that. We do have the ability to perhaps get him to put some bollards along the fence line of the laneway to make sure that the laneway is only used for foot traffic. And that is, and also there's some considerations regarding the sign, but that wasn't really the concerns of the residents. As far as the lighting goes, the lighting is something that would be enforceable should the light spill over into the residents' homes, that we can then, on having an appeal or a complaint made to us, get the lighting adjusted with baffles so that the light doesn't shine through there. And again, that would be something that needs to be done by the residents taking it to council, and council enforcement officers will have to do that. So really, with this particular application, as much as we might like to implement our own thoughts of how this could be improved, we are limited quite substantially by the planning scheme. They do have legal access to West Street to bring vehicles down there. I doubt they're going to bring a car moving vehicle down there because of the difficulty in getting into it in the first place. As one person said, it's quite a tight street. But it's not to say that at some point they might not choose to bring a single vehicle in through the rear access. And that is, I guess, why he has the bollards and hasn't built a solid wall across there, so that he maintains his legal right to West Street. And we have no means of actually stopping that as far as this development application goes. So I'll be very interested to hear the other councillors' views on this particular development application.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Seconder, Councillor Walker. Question first? Sure.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Question first, if I may. What are the conditions that when commercial property such as this shares a boundary with residential properties, what are the types of conditions that must be adhered to? Of course, we've heard about the light spill, but, just in regards to noise and activities, times of day and things like that, are there many things, knowing that these people do live next door to a commercial property, that are also taken into consideration?
Thanks, Councillor Walker. CEO.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I've got to get that right, Deputy Mayor. So there is general law that does provide avenue to deal with issues of any form of nuisance, be it light, be it noise, be it energy of music. So basically it comes down to whether the noise unreasonably interferes with a person's enjoyment of the environment is the terminology that's used, and or the nuisance. So there's a really refined process that we have in terms of investigating those elements. So aside from the restrictions that are placed by the conditions of the permit, there's always avenues under general law to be able to make complaint and investigate and resolve issues of nuisance.
Thanks, CEO. Any further questions, Councillor Walker? Just before I come to you as a speaker, there's a question from Councillor Harris.
Just on what the CEO mentioned there about the ability for us to investigate the noise, if the noise is being generated on the site, I could understand that we could perhaps control that if there was a disco in the car yard. However, most of the noise, I'm sure, is actually from traffic from Wellington Street. And so what is the ability for us to investigate that noise that isn't being generated on his site but it still clearly affects those residents? Is there any ability for us to enforce something there on those or not?
CEO?
So that's not a statutory nuisance. That would be a council matter. Like, again, if you're putting a new road in, or you're putting a highway, and you see at times where councils or the state government have determined that they put in acoustic barriers as part of the road design, and that's a matter for them. That's not a matter that would be prompted by the environmental nuisance legislation that I've just talked about. That would be something that the council or the road authority would identify that there's an issue and seek to remedy it. But again, I'm not saying that's the case in this situation. What I'm saying is that's generally how those type of acoustic treatments or otherwise would happen around infrastructure like roads, or noise from general infrastructure like roads or rail or airports and the like. So.
Thanks, CEO. Seconder, Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I suppose I'm doing things a little bit differently today. I wouldn't normally second a motion like this. I saw a few surprised faces around the room, but I'm rising to offer a challenge to Errol Stewart, and I wouldn't normally name the proponent of a development either, but in this case, he's a very high-profile developer in our town, and in this particular development, it's caused rather a large amount of controversy, issues that don't pertain directly to what we're discussing today, but nonetheless, issues concerning a wide range of subjects for our town. Of course, there was a building of heritage significance on that site. Errol would have known that had significance. Nonetheless, he pursued his option to demolish that building. That, of course, upset a lot of people. Now we're in a situation where the redevelopment means it will have an impact on his direct neighbours. So my challenge to this developer is for him to meet with those people and to find a solution. As has been clearly said here, we can't enforce that. That's not what we're here today to do. We're here to either pass this or reject it, and we have no reason to reject it. We do have a laneway that connects West Street to Wellington Street that people do use, and let me just say to the representatives today, I live very locally to that area. I know what they're talking about because I too have been impacted by a car yard in that area. So I know what they're talking about, and as much as people might say, oh, well, it's change, it's progress, what can you do? This is where people live. This is their homes. And I'll stand up every day to protect those homes In this case, we have no way of doing that other than appealing to Mr. Errol Stewart to show some respect for his neighbours and find a way forward that helps them to get on with their lives, rather than letting their amenity completely disappear. At the moment, you stand on Wellington Street. On the other side of Wellington Street, you look right down West Street. That's never been the case. I've lived there 20 years. That's never been the case. Now it is the case. He's within his rights to have done it, but let's see what other things he can do to work with his neighbours to improve the situation. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you. And again, I stand to support the motion, but I also take on board the sentiments raised by Councillor Walker, and just hope that the proponent will go and speak to the residents to try and mitigate some of the issues that are very real. And I understand when you get development, things change, and as a consequence of that, people's amenity does change. Whether it's amenity in the sense of what the Planning Act says is another matter. I suspect in this case it's not. There are a number of issues that have been raised in regard to the floodlighting and so forth like that, which they've been dealt with by condition and by the fact that they will look at what's currently in existence. My concern in regards to the public laneway seems like that's being addressed by the fact that there's going to be a separation there, which means the public laneway is still going to be public access and safe because vehicles won't be traversing across it by proper screening from that. They are the two major issues. Unfortunately, the fact is the house isn't there any longer. It is an open yard and it has due purpose to be able to do what is being done on that site. So as a consequence of that, under the planning scheme, and I remind ourselves that we sit here as a planning authority today and make the decisions based under the Planning Act. The Planning Act has been assessed by our officers and advice being given to us. Most of the representations and some of the ones that have been raised here today have been dealt with, I think, in relation to various things. But that issue of amenity and the ability of fact that things have changed and my street is now open to a bigger world than it once was. And I understand the street. I know the street very well. We've been there. And I think one of the talkers today, I've been down to a planning application of his. So the reality of it is it has changed, and it has changed probably not for the better for the people that live in that street, because it's different and it's opened up noise, it's opened up visual issues and so forth like that. But under the planning scheme, as we read through there, we know that this application meets the planning scheme, and the things that are concerned are being dealt with by way of condition to ensure that that's done. I'm pleased to hear that the bollards in relation to the dump trucks maybe can be readdressed to ensure that the garbage trucks can actually make a proper turnaround, because I have trucks that have to reverse backwards and forwards every Friday morning at 5 a.m. and I hear them. They're not much fun, but I get used to it, unfortunately. But I understand the issues associated with it, and if we can actually improve that egress to ensure that those trucks can get through in a manner which is perhaps more appealing or more appropriate for the street, that would be great. But having said that, looking through the various things that have been assessed, this application should be approved today.
Thanks, Councillor Mackenzie. Councillor Soward.
Thanks very much, Deputy. And I too would like to thank everyone who came and spoke today and contacted me about this item. I know the area very, very well. I walk it frequently, and just want to touch on a couple of the issues that bring concern to me in what's in front of us today. During my time here, I always reckon the best development application solutions come from collaboration. It doesn't matter where they are or what they are. So I'm too hoping that there's some further conversation that happens here. I'm heartened, Deputy, in that the representations that were made to me and to us verbally today, no one spoke about development being bad or, this is a bad thing. They just want more collaborative outcomes to protect their amenity. And I think that's really, really important. Often, particularly more recently, when we've sat as a planning authority, people have come and spoken against the development because it's been on an empty site, or it's been, and Councillor Mackenzie always sums it up eloquently, it's something different to what's been there. The problem here is there's something different to what's been there is because the building that was there is gone. That's the difference. It's not just a blank canvas that something's now been built on, and that's impacted on their amenity. The concern I have, and again, it's been spelled out very clearly, and I know our officers are very, very good at following up. When something happens and you've got to report it to the council and the compliance people have got to investigate it, the residents have got to keep a diary. it's quite onerous for everyone. It's quite onerous for the resident who's got to get up and write the thing down in the diary. It's quite onerous for the officers who do great work, important work. They're out chasing up whether a light's too bright or not bright enough or whatever. So I guess what I'm saying is common sense, I hope, going forward prevails where the developer meets the residents on this one and says, look, I know it's an issue. And I'm no lighting expert, but as someone, when I first came across it, I thought, jokingly, of course, the new AFL stadium was built there because of the lighting as I was heading through South Launceston of an evening. It is very, very bright and it would impact. Councillor McKenzie touched on the other thing that concerned me. That's a small street. It contains, usually during the day, a lot of non-resident traffic where workers park during the day and trundle off to work at venues nearby. Of an evening, it's full of cars. So if you've got trucks turning up to pick rubbish up and they're doing a 25-point turn, that's disruptive to everyone. Breaking the pavement is a cost to us. So, like others, we do sit as a planning authority. We do need to follow planning law. It complies as far as that goes. But my hope, Deputy, in dealing with this today is that some common sense conversations will happen following this. And I guess in conclusion, when we have someone like Mrs. Gervasoni, who doesn't even live in the street anymore but feels so passionately about it that she wants to come in and make a representation about how important that is, and the gentleman who spoke about the gardens on the footpath. And again, it's terrific to see over summer the produce on there. People come and help themselves. It's just fantastic. So it's a great community spirit, and I'm hoping that the developer can work with the community, none of whom have said, get rid of the yard, we don't want development, we're all against everything. That haven't said that. They've just said, let's tidy up these things around the lighting, let's tidy up these things about the access, let's provide some sort of barrier to protect our amenity, and all's good. So I'm hoping common sense prevails. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Souter. Question, Councillor Spencer.
Just querying where the light poles are. Are they on the front of the property on the right-hand side? And if I've been an electrician 40-odd years, if they're going to shine east, it's definitely going to affect the neighbours. There's no question about it. If he wants to light up the car park, it's going to affect the neighbours. The lights probably should be on the north and south side, shining that way instead of shining back into the properties. The block next door is one of his buildings on the property, so that doesn't get affected. But in this, where there's no lane, where you look straight up the street, the light will definitely affect the neighbours. 40-odd years experience, I know. If you want to light the car yard up, it's going to affect the neighbours.
Thanks, Councillor Spencer.
If we could find out where the light poles are and see if they can shine north-south.
With regard to the plans, Planner Ian, are you able to assist us with that?
They're along the light pole proposed is along Wellington Street, probably approximately 3 metres to the southwest. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's first to shine straight east then, possibly.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Thank you, Town Planner Ian.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Spencer. Councillor Harris, do you wish to close?
I will. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And thank you to my fellow councillors who've all spoken on this, and also for those residents of West Street and former residents who've come to voice their opinion. I just really want to summarise by saying we do need to approve this particular development application today because it does meet the planning scheme as it is. However, perhaps like to just add my voice to hope that the developer, that Errol does talk and meet with his neighbours and perhaps can come up with a mutually beneficial solution to some of their issues, if not all of them. And certainly if the council can perhaps look at the location of the 2 bollards to make it a little easier for the contractors' rubbish and recycling truck to do their work. We are perhaps lucky in this street that option is available to us, because I'm sure there's other streets just as narrow, just as with a dead end as that the contractor has to do a 10-point turn every time. I do hope that none of the contractors are in fact out there at 5 a.m. in the morning, because I'm pretty sure their condition of the contract says they don't start before 6 a.m. But other than that, 6 a.m, if you're woken up by it, it doesn't really matter. It's still a noisy thing to have happen. So I will hope that all of the councillors here today will support this development.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. We'll put the vote. All those in favour raise their hand. That is all councillors present. The motion is carried. Thank you. We move to item 9.3, 14 Audrey Avenue, St Leonards, page 45 of the agenda, construction of an outbuilding. I have no speakers listed. Just double checking, Elizabeth, no one has since arrived. Looking for someone to move item 9.3. Councillor Spencer, thank you. A seconder. Councillor Harris, thank you. Councillor Spencer, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, we all went and checked that out on the bus this morning. Where that is, it's not going to affect any neighbours. It's built well into the bank. It's 6 metres high, but it goes into a bank that's 3 metres tall on the bank. So by the time they do their cutout, it will only look like a normal shed from the neighbours. I've got a big shed, great man cave, great for guys
Person
and ladies.
cave, remember?
And I will fully support this. So thank you.
Great, thank you. We've come a long way in 4 years. Councillor Harris?
Thank you. Yes, the shed is a large one, and I had great concerns, in fact, until we saw the site this morning. And as Councillor Spencer said, the site does facilitate the height of this shed particularly well, because the other homes are in fact located uphill, and so they are able to see over the top of it. So I don't see any great problems with this particular shed. It does worry me that during the conversations under the new planning scheme, we now only have control over the amount of land that is actually covered under the planning scheme, rather than the physical size of the shed. So in a large block like this, it would be a very big shed indeed that did in fact exceed the coverage legislation. So a shed that is 10 metres by 12 metres is still a very large shed when it's nearly 5.4 metres high in the middle. But nevertheless, happy to support this development application today.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Councillor McKenzie?
Thank you. It feels like Ferris Bueller's day off today. I haven't had to move anything yet, which is great. But, you know, I'm really saying the only issue that we're dealing with today is the 10.4.3.2A2, which is in relation to the side setback. Otherwise, it meets the planning criteria. And if you look at the reliance on the performance criteria and the issues that need to be dealt with, they've been really adequately discussed and explained in the documentation provided by our planners, and I see no reason why we wouldn't support this application today.
Thanks, Councillor McKenzie. Any other contributions? Councillor Walker?
No, just a question to our planners, please. I know that one representative refers to their property being in a low density zone, and that's one of the reasons they chose to live there. Is that the case, and does that make any difference to this particular development application?
Senior Town Planner, Catherine.
Just turn it on.
Just the button. Thank you.
This one?
It's all good, all good.
The part of that area is general residential further down the hill. It's only low density through a section between Able Hills Road and Benvenue Avenue. A bit lower down the hill it is general residential, but so in the general residential zone, as Councillor Harris was saying, the zone provisions have also changed there, so you can develop on 50% of the site in the general residential zone, and it's 30% in the low density residential zone. So the shed size has been literally specifically taken away, and there is a slight difference with the zone.
Thank you, Catherine. Any other contributions? Councillor Spencer, would you like to close?
Yeah, I think it's a very good block of land for this shed. So, yep, I think we should all vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll put the vote. All those in favour raise their hand. That is all councillors present. The motion is carried. Council no longer sits as a planning authority. Thank you. Item 10 is the Mayor's announcements. I draw your attention to Sunday the 16th of October. Unfortunately, due to the impact of rain, the 5 and 10K Run for Reef race wasn't able to take place. So if that could be removed, please, from the Mayor's announcements. We move to councillors' reports. I would like to start by recognising that this is Seniors Week, and the community development team at council have been running a series of wonderful morning and afternoon teas recognising seniors in our community, and in an innovative approach going to different parts of our municipality in order to partner with organisations such as the Starting Point Neighbourhood House, Northern Suburbs Community Centre, the Migrant Resource Centre and others in order to celebrate Seniors Week. I also wanted to reference the fact that I'm sure, like myself, you've noted that with more than 100 participants and supporters who are in town visiting our wonderful city for the National Games of the Special Olympics, what an additional great energy their presence has had in our city, with many accommodation houses full, and of course the economic and social return that those games are having on our city, those long-awaited games having on our city, is certainly very welcomed, and it's been great to see lots of the photos of those participants doing their best in their respective field. And the third and final thing I wanted to do was to reference the great work of Launceston City Marketing putting together the second annual North Festival, celebrating all things food and wine, all things city of gastronomy, all things of this place with regard to the month-long offering North. And I know many councillors have been involved with some of the events or attended indeed the launch that was held last week. But we thank Launceston City Marketing for the big effort in pulling together what is a great celebration of food and wine of our city. Are there any additional councillor reports? Councillor Mackenzie.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I've got a few this month. I just want to acknowledge I went to the Order of Australia Association reception here at the Town Hall last week, which was, I think, a really good event honouring those people who have done great things within our community. I know there were one or two other councillors also involved in that. We held a Theatre North strategic planning session last week, which is dealing with all sorts of different things, including the potential refurbishment of the Princess Theatre over the next few years. So a really interesting day in our meeting there. Given it's not quite a council committee, it's still something I think worth reporting on. In addition, I attended the men's 5K walk for Men's Table on Sunday and wandered around Heritage Forest, which is a great place where it's really designed around getting men just to talk to each other about things other than footy and soccer and various other things like that, which is really a positive thing to deal with. I actually then rolled on to the Tamar Valley Writers Festival, which we support as well, and went and listened to Robbie Arnott launch of his new book, Limberlost, which was absolutely sensational. A young lad who was born here in Launceston is now into his third book and very much an acclaimed author. And this week I've done a couple of other things as well. We attended with Councillor Harris last night the TBUG Annual General Meeting and talked to them about the Transport Vision 2020 to 2040 so that they have an understanding of what's there in store for bikes and other things going forward. And there are a number of other things like Jersey Boys and things like that that are later in the week that are going to fill my diary in. But I also wanted just to take a point that made by the Deputy Mayor at the opening about the flood management last weekend. Having sort of recently elevated to the chair of the Flood Management Committee, I just really want to endorse the comments made by the Deputy Mayor, the amazing effort that put in by our staff, and not always well received on things where I can't do this and I can't do that because of the floods. So they had to deal with a number of things which personally are quite confronting. I think some of the things they've had to deal with over the last week, but they do it over a long period of time. And I know some of them are working 16-hour shifts and doing all sorts of different things to make sure that our city was safe. So we managed to get through this event without any loss of life and only minimal property damage. Not so lucky out in the regions, and I'd also like to commend our staff who actually assisted other municipalities with some of the issues in regards to evacuation centres and actually provided resource in relation to those sorts of things. So I think did a magnificent job. Unfortunately, we may be seeing a little bit more of that coming up in the next few days. So we just got to keep our minds and focused again. So hopefully I get enough rest before the next one comes through. And finally, I just wanted to make a comment. I know probably this will come up at some other stage, but I just want to make my personal thanks to those that are voluntarily stepping away from council today, being their last meeting, and that would be the Mayor, Councillor Van Zetten, which I'm sad he's not here, Councillor Soward, Councillor Cox, who has already done that, Councillor Sodgen and Councillor Daking, and really thank them for their efforts in serving their community. Putting your hand up to come and do something for your community sounds like a really great idea, but it comes with its challenges, and as we've already seen this morning or this afternoon, dealing with difficult things like development applications are not something that always sits with us personally, the decisions we have to make, but we have to make them. And we've been entrusted for the last 4 years to make lots of decisions on behalf of the community that we represent. So I'm really wanting to personally thank them for their collegial way that they've gone about things, their personal support of me in many things that I've been involved in. So it's been great having you on council, and hopefully you're not a stranger to us beyond today's meeting. And also I really wish those standing again, the 7 of us that are remaining at least until the end of next week, wishing them well with their endeavours to be re-elected.
Thanks, Councillor Mackenzie. Councillor Harris.
Thank you. And yes, like others, we've had a busy couple of weeks. Yesterday, in fact, not only was it Seniors Week, it was also Get Online Week for the Neighbourhood Watch people. So I went out to the One Care Retirement Village and helped a number of those people out there understand technology is probably the best way to describe it, with some assistance from the Telstra shop at Kings Meadows. It was also Ride to Work Day yesterday, and participated again. It was a lovely day for a ride into work, and then had to ride the bike back home to Kings Meadows, so that was all good fun. As Councillor Mackenzie said, we attended a few events, the T-Bug AGM last night, the Men's 5K Walk, and also there was something else we attended too. I think the Association for the Orders of Australia as well. But I also attended the North Wine Walk on Saturday, which was a great event, and as you said, should be congratulated as far as the Central City marketing was concerned. The numbers were down a bit, I think, from the past year, but that certainly didn't stop those who did participate from enjoying themselves. And it was good to see the city alive with people wandering around everywhere. Also attended the Tamar Valley Leaders Lunch with Dr. Tony McCall, where he spoke passionately about the circular economy and the opportunities that exist for that here in Launceston. And also myself with Councillor Walker and yourself, Deputy Mayor, attended the Mayor's Forum put on by the Chamber of Commerce at Bogues on Monday week ago, the 10th, where we had the opportunity to answer some questions put to us by the LAFM, hosted it. But I think it was worthwhile for the 30 or so unaligned voters who turned up to actually listen to the questions. And that's without understanding how many were actually online as well and watching. So a busy couple of weeks. And like Councillor Mackenzie, I'd just like to say thank you to those who have made the decision not to restand. And certainly I understand that, because I have certainly appreciated their help and support from when I first got on this council 4 years ago. And yes, we'll all have to wait and see if we're all back next time.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Questions by councillors. Councillors' questions without notice. Councillor Spencer.
Thanks, Deputy. Had a phone call from a gentleman about the Blessington Hall. He was disappointed after they'd put the petition in, they didn't get a reply. Is there any reason that didn't go back to him, or was it just online?
So, Councillor Spencer, you'll remember there was a very detailed report that came back to council,
right,
with regard to the response pertaining to the hall that set out the way forward.
Did that go back to the committee?
So there was an element of that was still trying to resolve the funds. So there was ongoing conversation with the representatives that we were trying to have conversations with about the unresolved matter of the funds.
Right. Yeah, well, they'd probably need to be informed of that if possible. The second question is the election signs. Why is there 3 and 4 signs on one title? Why haven't they been removed?
is no. Look,
CEO?
It's hard to be able to answer that question. That you need to lodge a complaint so that
Well,
we can investigate it.
I never lodged it, but other people haven't. Nothing's happened.
Well, we need to look into that, but clearly we're able to. But the process is to lodge a complaint, and we will investigate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. Councillor Harris.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions, but first I will start with a congratulations to the council staff and to our mayor in his absence for the wonderful explanation of what happened at Newstead, where the levee bank did exactly what it was meant to do, and that is it held the floodwaters back in the North Esk. But the consequence of doing that was that the stormwater inside the area then got captured. So I thought that was an excellent explanation, and in fact answered one of the many questions that have been raised with me in the last few days. So I do have just a couple of questions, and it is all about along the North Esk and the flood waters. The first one is, and I don't expect a response right now, I would say probably have the response in the next meeting in 4 weeks' time in the minutes, and that is, one, what's happened to the ribbon of blue trail between Henry Street and the Hobblers Bridge by the floodwater, and whether in fact we need to, I guess, resurface what we've done there, because we've done a lot of work to bring that up to standard. It'll be interesting to see how that has handled this flood, because many people are saying that this flood in 2022 was actually bigger on the North Esk than 2016.
And the next question?
Similarly, the next two questions are somewhat similar but related, and that is in regard to the 2 foot and cycle bridges that have been built since the 2016 flood, one at the UTAS, linking the UTAS sites, and the second one linking Seaport and Riverbend Park. They clearly got hit by trees and floating pontoons. Whether in fact they have sustained any damage from that, that is a question that others have asked, if that's the case, to understand it, particularly as I don't believe we've taken over the UTAS bridge, and we wouldn't want to take over one that had been damaged. Thank you.
Great. They will be taken on notice, and I feel sure our staff will be providing a comprehensive report of the impact on our assets into the future for a new council. Subsequent question, Councillor Walker.
Not subsequent, thank you, but a question without notice. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And quite happy for this to be answered in the future. But I've been asked if are there any is there any ability for the council to control our street lighting and its effects on housing? It's in a particular case where a street light was relocated and it is causing, sort of that light to go into the person's property. But that person was advised also at the time when it was happening that the council can address these things by various techniques. So if I could find out at some stage if that is possible with our street lighting. I think it also might have changed because we've installed LED lighting and that has a different type of impact as well. So that might be part of the issue. But yeah, happy to hear back if there's any way that we do address that.
Take that on notice as you suggest. Thanks, Councillor Walker. Any further questions without notice? We'll move to item 13.1 as Councillor Dawkins withdraws from the meeting having declared a conflict. It's moved by Councillor Stosenjek. A seconder, I beg your pardon, we've got a speaker, so the seconder will be Councillor Mackenzie. I'll welcome Mr. Voss, please, Jargon Voss, to the microphone. Great to have you with us.
Number 12 Deek Street, Kings Meadows. I'm here today representing a rapid relief team. Today I'd like to thank the councillors and Launceston City Council in advance for considering us for funding for the 2022 Launceston Festive Food Box program. As a local team leader for the rapid relief team, we're committed to helping to reduce homelessness and also supporting other areas of youth, including schools, health and emergency events. To touch on the support to the community in the past 12 months, we have been providing food boxes already and snack packs to displaced persons, as well as some little muesli bars for children in schools to combat hunger in schools to improve learning, and also water and hand sanitisers as well. We've also donated over 150 food boxes to a host of organisations like Tresca, Safe Choices, Magnolia House, Anglicare and Beaconsfield Health and Family, and we're also supporting Norwood Primary and Ravenswood Heights School. Recent weeks we've been supporting emergency services in Devonport and also in Deloraine in the clean-up from the flooding. And at the moment our team is very busy in the Shepparton floods, having in the past few days donated over 50,000 sandbags and around 700 meals. So the main point in thanking you for your support is that this support in funding allows us to direct money for these food boxes and other items to, this funding helps us to provide these services to emergency services. So it channeled into different areas. So once again, I appreciate the consideration for the food boxes. What's in these food boxes is enough to provide a family of 4 for food for 2 days, and trust that the Launceston City Council will consider us for future funding applications.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us. So the motion 13.1 parts 1, 2 and 3 moved by Councillor Stosenjek, seconded by Councillor Mackenzie. Councillor Stosenjek, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. At the recent meeting, we welcomed our 2 new Community Grants Committee members, Cheryl Thomas and Maddie Bigelow. Although they didn't score this round, they participated in the discussion during the meeting, which I feel will provide them with a good induction to the role. I'm confident they will both become valued members of the committee. Thanks also to Lou Clark, who continues to provide invaluable input on the panel. The latest round of community grants attracted some innovative applications. It was great to see a focus on the provision of food security and community gardens, with the Food Pantry Project, the Grow Waverley Food Co-op, the Kitchen Garden Greenhouse, the Festive Food Box Project, and the provision of a community cookbook. I think this demonstrates that we have many people in the community doing it tough at the moment, and it's heartening to see these community groups stepping up to offer support. I'm very pleased that our community grants program is able to support such essential services. Thank you once again to Stephanie and Tracy, who continue to provide such a high level of advice and support to both applicants and committee members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stosenjek, and thank you for your efforts with the committee, together with other committee members. Councillor Mackenzie.
Thanks. I just want to stand just to endorse the comments made by Councillor Stosenjek. It's always a challenging matter when you're sitting down trying to make grant rounds, particularly where you've got more people wishing to have grants than you've actually got available monies, and with such is the case this time, and unfortunately there's one loser out of it, but and I'm pleased that the rapid response team were able to be afforded some funding as a result of what was left over in the funding round. But I really say thank you to Corinna. She's done this job for a long period of time. I really think she's done a fantastic job in doing it. It's a hard one. They do a lot of analysis to come up with the scores they come up with, but they get the result right. So well done.
Thanks, Councillor Mackenzie. Councillor Soward.
Thanks very much, and I too would like to thank Councillor Stosenjek and her team, not just the current group, but groups previously that she's and yourself, Deputy, have worked with. All I wanted to say, as I usually do with these types of grants, and we see the broad range of community groups that are benefiting, when people say to me, where do my rates go? I pay rates, what do I get for it? What happens? Well, ta-da, one we prepared earlier. Have a look at the impact. Have a look at the impact there. Have a look at the impact that has for many thousands of people. For the princely sum of $33,425, Deputy. So there are some fantastic groups there that, I don't think it would be unfair to say, run off the smell of an oily rag. And the small amount that they've asked for and the small amount that they've got will certainly play a key part in the work that those organisations do. And I wish them well in implementing their programs and projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Soward. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I do rise as a member on that committee to thank the work of Councillor Stosenjek in chairing that committee. I I was unfortunately unavailable for this meeting. I think I've attended every other. So I was pleased to see, and I suppose I will reiterate what our chair said, which is that it seems to be that various themes do come through these community grants, depending on the needs of the community, and it's quite obvious here of that predominance for food security, as Councillor Stojanchek says. So that being said, it doesn't mean that there isn't room for many other things, and this is, as to reiterate, I suppose, what Councillor Soward has said. This is, example of what the council does support in the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Any other contributions? Councillor Stojanchek, do you wish to close? We'll put the vote. All those in favour raise their hand. That is all councillors present. The motion is carried. And we welcome Councillor Dawkins back to the meeting at 2:10. Item 13.2, special event sponsorship. Someone to move. Thank you, Councillor Stojanchek. A seconder, Councillor Soward. Thank you. Councillor Stojanchek.
We had an application for special event sponsorship from Golf Australia for the 2023 Men's and Women's Open Golf Championship. Whilst it is obviously a great event, unfortunately, as the panel scored the event at less than 50%, they're not recommended to receive any funding in this instance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stojanchek. Seconder, Councillor Soward. Any contributions from fellow councillors? Councillor Stojanchek, anything further? We'll put the vote. All those in favour raise their hand. That is all councillors present. The motion is carried. We move to page 62 of the agenda. Creative Arts and Cultural Services Network, 14.1. The QVMag Activity Statement, July to September 2022. The Council receives the report for that period as seen in Attachment 1. Someone to move? Councillor Mackenzie. A seconder, Councillor Dawkins. Councillor Mackenzie, do you wish to speak to the motion?
My comments are really related to the fact that I think that it's great to have that report. I think it actually outlines things and it shows, I guess, a marginal increase in visitation to the QV mag. I think moreover though, there's a lot of just undertone in regard to what I see happening in and around the museum with the differences, the changes that are occurring and some of the exhibitions that are coming in. And I sort of highlight the fact that this Friday night or Friday is the launch of the Archies. Having had the pleasure of seeing that in Adelaide a few weeks ago, it's certainly something I commend to Launceston. And to get an exhibition of that stature coming to our museum is only going to but lift, I think, the status of the organisation that we have. And they're the sorts of things that I think start to stand out and make us look like the place that people want to go to. So I applaud the report and I sort of endorse the people that haven't read it to have a good read of it because it is a good read. And I just think just the little touches that I can see happening in and around the museum now would suggest that we're on an upward trajectory. So I'm very, very pleased to receive that report, and hopefully this is a quarterly report that will continue to arrive on our desks.
Hear, hear. Seconder, Councillor Dawkins.
To echo the statements of Councillor Mackenzie, that I think the next term of council is in for a really fantastic opportunity to engage further with the community around the collection at QV Mag and some of the really exciting, interesting events that are starting to bubble up through the new management. Can't wait to see what's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dawkins. Any further contributions with regard to the report? Councillor Mackenzie, do you wish to close? We'll put the vote. All those in favour raise their hand. That is all councillors present and the motion is carried. We move to 15.1, action on the petition with regard to the petition that was received on the 5th of October. We have a number of speakers, starting with Wendy McLennan. Welcome, Wendy.
Oh, thank you. You're on the other end outside. Thank you, councillors. Thank you for allowing me to address you today about this very controversial topic that's been going on for a lot of years. On Monday, the 24th of September 2018, this council made a decision to retain the heritage railway running from Turners Marsh to Waina rather than ending it at Lilydale, and there was no mention in that decision about a car park at Lilydale Falls. Now, I'd just like to say that this is no longer about a recreational bike trail or the operation of a railway. This is about, or the construction of a car park. This is about contamination, and major contamination from crushing ballast and the consequent effect on the farmers' livelihoods. At the Dorset Council, they approved the development application without the required environmental assessment. The Rumpat appeal also passed the development without any environmental assessment. Would the Environment Protection Authority consider it acceptable to crush ash with up to 600 parts per million arsenic that will leach into the waterways at 1 million times the ANZAC guidelines? In the North East Advertiser, there was a letter from Mary Ziegfeld detailing specific negative consequences of the ballast being crushed and of her cattle drinking from the contaminated areas. Greenham's test and grade all meet for chemical residue. She would potentially lose her accreditation. Should we put recreational activities ahead of economic farming activity? The consequences of this type of contamination is far-reaching for the landowners along the line. It is the prime responsibility of local government to ensure the protection of our local areas and protect our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next speaker listed is Elizabeth. Elizabeth, would you like to make your way to the table?
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Cute and I live at 86 Ravenswood Road, and I am today the opposed development of the car park at Lilydale Falls, which will in turn allow for a stretch of the railway between Scottsdale and Lilydale Falls to become a bike track. The main concern for me is the social and physical environmental damage this proposal will have on my property and the surrounding areas, which will cause financial and personal loss if the proposal was to go ahead. Way back in 2004, I purchased an internal block of land at Labrina, 21 Butlers Road, portfolio 250093, with a focus of developing and creating a weekend escape. I'm fortunate enough to share a property boundary with a beautiful Denison Gorge, and I have a railway corridor that divides my land into two sections with streams and underground springs. I've spent the last 18 years creating a peaceful haven, little weekend getaway that now plays a major part of my retirement dream. If this proposal was to go ahead, all this work, time and energy will be gone in an instant, or will no longer have the privacy that this land offers. It is well documented that the ballast along the train line for which this proposal wishes to turn into a bike track is full of extremely toxic arsenic and asbestos. This would lead to detrimental and catastrophic environmental damages to the local ecosystems along the proposed track, including my land and into the Denison Gorge. If this proposal was to go ahead, the release of these toxins in particular will cause irreversible damage to the environment. I have 72 acres and half of this land is in plantation forest. This may not seem significant to any of you, but to me it represents 17 years of hard work and the pleasure of the stress-free private oasis I have enjoyed with my family and friends. Already Mr Ferguson has already compulsory acquired my land and surveyed approximately 4 acres without my written consent, even after I've written to say that I wanted compensation for the proposal if it went ahead. The heavy toll on both the social and physical environment, plus the financial loss just to me, should be enough to raise concern over whether this proposal is in the best interest of the wider community and its residents, especially when there are other proposals for the land that may serve as a better alternative. I invite you all to come and enjoy the serenity and to see it for yourself. It is a track, not a trail. Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Paul Kabauser.
Good afternoon, Deputy Mayor. Alderman, I was here a couple of weeks ago and spoke about the pollution in the railway line from the crushing of ballast and the acid and I've been sitting there, and the chemicals going into the properties. The Mayor of Dorset said on Monday that the information I gave, sent to all you people about the horses that died, I sent you all a copy. He said it wasn't confirmed. Well, that's the book, that's the information, and he was the government analyst of the Crown that wrote the whole thing and went and proved that it was like that. And that's what really, I mean, if we sit and take notice of that, it tells you the whole story. It's not about trains and bikes, it's about the farmers. And this is the first time in 8 years that myself and the rest of the other landowners have had a chance to speak about our problem. It's not about everything else, it's about our problem of changing the use of the railway line to, you know, most people bought the property with the railway line knowing it was a railway line, or they inherited the property. And it's just changed because of all this, and it's not right that it's taken from us. It's the same as that last speaker. The government compulsory acquired her land, and it went through her property twice. It wasn't on a title, so they just compulsory acquired the property. And that solves their problem, but it's not really her problem, you know. Anyhow, that's about all I need to say today, but I wanted to bring it forward again, that it's not hearsay or not proven. The Mayor says things like that all the time at Dorset. That's what I wanted you all to know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
They are all the speakers I have listed. Elizabeth, are there any additional speakers? So 15.1, the recommendation is that Council ask the CEO to write to Dorset Council requesting that Dorset Council undertake community consultation directly with the Lilydale community to establish community sentiment in relation to construction of the rail trail and associated works at the Falls. Such sentiment to be used to inform the City of Launceston's position on consent to commence the work. Councillor Walker moved as written. Seconder, Councillor Soward. Councillor Walker, over to you.
Yes, moved as written. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The ongoing saga of the North East Railway continues. You know, whether or not this has been well handled by various parties over the year, who's to know? But what we do know, it's an extremely divisive issue. And that divisiveness has come out again over another aspect to it, which is where would you locate the head of a cycle trail? At Lilydale Falls, at our reserve. And then we have the Mayor of Dorset Council on the radio yesterday saying, well, that was Launceston Council's choice. And yet we have Launceston Council saying, well, this is something that Dorset Council has to deal with. So again, we're in the quagmire. And I always think when issues are so divisive, there has to be an alternative solution. We can't keep pursuing one solution over another. You know, this is, you know, time and time again throughout history when there's been divisive issues, whether it's conscription in World War I in Australia, which was a horrendously divisive issue, divided families and communities, whether it was the pulp mill in the Tamar Valley, where neighbours wouldn't talk to each other because of their positions. And this we're talking about in the northeast of Tasmania, which is an underserviced area already, an area that has probably a lack of investment in terms of resources and services from a state level to then impose upon that a decision that is extremely divisive in the community, which will remove a large, expensive infrastructure from that community. It requires this council and Dorset Council to reassess its position in light of new information. Some of that new information is that the residents of Lilydale are not happy about the solution that's been provided for a car park in their reserve. I say their reserve, it's our reserve, of course, but it's certainly very much close to the hearts of the people in Lilydale. So I wholeheartedly endorse this recommendation, but I do believe that there's more to this story and there's more that we will have to deal with in the near future. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. A question, Councillor Mackenzie.
There's been a number of comments made regarding the runoff of arsenic and so forth onto properties. Could the CEO just advise whose responsibility it is to actually look after that in relation to any chemical runoff? Is it the corridor manager who's running the property, or who's running the thing that is responsible for that? Or is it the City of Launceston? I would have thought that it's a matter of you need to keep things within the parameters of the properties that are toxic, or to manage those things to ensure that that sort of pollution didn't occur. Could you just enlighten where that sits as far as our role is in it?
CEO.
I certainly talked to it. It was probably a bit beyond the scope of what you're actually considering right now. But in terms of whose responsibility it is, it's the permit holders. So in respect of this particular proposal, obviously the permit application or the development application was to be considered today. We've requested, and the Dorset Council have sought to engage with the local community around this particular element of the project. And so the council will receive an application from them once they've done that consultation. But in terms of the management of the issue around contaminated land or contaminated materials, as with any development that occurs where there is potential site contamination that has been identified, it's beholden upon the applicant or the landowner, or in this case the railway corridor manager, to have responsibility for managing that. And in terms of the development application process, it's there to assess and to, where necessary, apply conditions to see that is managed. So.
Thank you, CEO. Seconder, Councillor Soward.
Yeah, thanks very much, Deputy. And in his remarks, Councillor Walker sort of summed it up pretty well. I'm going to confine my remarks just to what the recommendation says, and I think that's very straightforward, but also B, very, very sensible. And all I really wanted to add was to thank those who spoke today and spoke previously, but continue to make representations to us. They raise serious concerns that I hope are addressed going into the future. But I think in looking at the recommendation, that's a very, very sensible course of action to take to inform, obviously, this council's position going forward. And obviously with council elections and new people being around the table, it's probably good that it's come to us today and that piece of work can continue out there and obviously progress in the near future. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Soward. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, I should say. Yes, so to speak to this particular motion, Councillor Walker, in moving it, has said, there have been many divisive issues, and there certainly has been. And as one who was here in the 1980s, I remember the very much divisiveness about the building of the Southern Outlet, because that was going to change Launceston forever when you bulldozed all those houses, cut off those roads. And I think at the time it was the most expensive piece of road infrastructure at something like $10 million per kilometre. And I dare say, look at where we would be today if those people who raised those issues had won the day compared to others who have said this is part of our progress of our way forward. So I do think there are always two sides to this story. And in fact, the recommendation for the CEO to write to the Dorset Council about the car park is because, in fact, the Lilydale District Progress Association do, in fact, support the rail trail. And it is just the car park that they had some issues with about the size of it and the fact that it was going to take some of the available land used regularly by campers to turn it into a car park where you then couldn't camp on it. and they felt that they hadn't been consulted by the Dorset Council, and that's probably true. So I think it's very apt that we do take this step and that a future council will have the opportunity to look at it. And I'm sure we will have many people, as we have with many other developments around the city, have raised concerns that they have, and particularly if they're directly affected. However, we are here to perhaps sometimes look at the greater good. And I do think that the tourist opportunities provided by rail trails, if you look at it in through Victoria, through New Zealand, you will find that these things do in fact create great rural employment and opportunities for landholders to make contact with the passing cyclists or walkers, and it will absolutely open up that part of the state to much more tourism than it currently has, and I'm a great believer in it. I love railways, don't get me wrong, but this railway will never work. It will not be financial, and unfortunately, it probably doesn't go through enough of the unique Tasmanian wilderness. And if you take the App Railway as an example, that despite the fact that we're running that there, we are still struggling to make $1 out of it. And I'm sure the North East Rail, should that ever operate, would never make $1 if it could ever get approval to actually run on those rail lines. So I'm quite happy with this letter and recommendation. However, I do bring a slightly different view to it, that I'm saying that there are in fact more people in Launceston and surrounds that do in fact support the rail trail conversion to a recreation trail over the use of it as a rail line. Thank you.
Councillor Walker, do you wish to close? No? We'll put the... Sorry, Councillor... No? Happy? We'll put the vote. All those in favour? That is all councillors present, and the motion is carried. We move to item 16, 16.1, the draft Aboriginal Partnership Plan. Someone to move the partnership plan? Councillor Walker. Seconder, Councillor Dawkins. Councillor Walker, over to you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I wish to begin by acknowledging that we do meet on Aboriginal land, and it's land that has never been ceded. And I wish to thank the CEO for taking personal charge of this process. It has been a reasonably long process. I suppose it's dominated quite a bit of this term of council, this past 4 years, probably the last 2.5 to 3 years. And it's an extremely important work, and I've probably said it before in regards to this subject, that I do personally believe that it's one of the more important things that we will do as a council, and hopefully the councillors around the table who've unanimously supported it in the past will one day look back and realise, well, maybe they know already, that what they're participating is extremely important for this city to not just recognise our Aboriginal community and their culture and that significance, but to build a partnership with that community moving forward, acknowledging the cultural differences that we have, as we would with any culture. And I suppose I draw particular attention to the first action point, which is the continuous improvement of this partnership, because it will be a living document. It will be a process that will grow and evolve. And that is something that would happen with any relationship that we have personally or socially, business-wise or otherwise, that those relationships grow and evolve over time. This is an opportunity by hopefully approving this draft document today to seek a broader public input into this process and into the partnership. I know that feedback has already been sought from various members of our Aboriginal community, and that's helped to inform what the CEO has presented to us today. And finally, I would encourage everyone in our community to take the time to read the draft document and to begin to understand what will be possible for Launceston, for our council, for our workers, but also the broader public, to be able to achieve through such a partnership where we recognise the significance of our Aboriginal community and their culture to our town, to our city. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Dawkins.
Thank you. Yes, this term of council has presented a genuine opportunity for City of Launceston to engage with our Aboriginal communities in a meaningful way, and in a way which, though many of us think is long overdue, is absolutely time. Our current Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, started this term of federal parliament, or his role as Prime Minister, by talking about the opportunity that the Uluru Statement from the Heart presents to the entire community, but especially to decision makers. It's time for our Aboriginal communities to have a voice in all levels of government, and it's entirely the same with this council. There's no loss of strength to us if we give voice to many. In fact, what it does is build strength and build opportunity to include more people in decision making in Launceston. We're yet to have an inclusion strategy, and I think this can form a part of that inclusion strategy for our entire community. Obviously, from the Access Committee's perspective, we want that. I think from the cultural communities, they want that. And I think the Aboriginal community can have a leading role in us understanding what our inclusion strategy should provide to our entire community. I think knowing that parks are going to be involved and considering cultural burning when it comes to the environmental challenges that are before us, it is a fantastic opportunity to look backwards while looking forwards, trying to resolve some of the incredible problems that we have with the current climate crisis. I know that we've started to include more Palawakani when we're discussing our natural places. That wasn't hard. When we started in this term of council, rarely did we hear Kunamaluka River Tamer, but now it rolls off people's tongues so effortlessly. And I think that's down to a lot of the work that Councillor Walker's done, but also leadership from the CEO. So I thank everybody around the table for their willingness to discuss the way we commemorate important days in Australia, to understand that commemorating on January the 26th causes more sadness and more grief than it brings genuine joy. And that's not just to the Aboriginal communities, but to their allies and the people who support self-determination for our First Nations people. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Dawkins. Councillor Mackenzie.
Thanks. I just want to stand to endorse the recommendation as well, acknowledging the hard work that's gone in. So we may seem like we've only done small steps in relation to it, but we've made some significant steps with the removal of Australia Day activities on the 26th of January, the flying of the flag, the town hall. I think are great things, and I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Walker's role in that. I think I've learnt a lot through the discussions and the commentary that he's put forward, and had a lot of learnings along the way, so I'd like to thank him for that. I'd also like to thank the CEO, because he's taken it on personally, and drafting something like this is always fraught with challenges, and it's not going to always suit everybody the way we go about it. But this has been truly a conversation with the Aboriginal people about how we might react with them as we go forward. Public consultation is appropriate, which will include all levels of the community to have their say in relation to it. So I'm pretty proud of where we've got to. Sometimes taking steps slowly are a good thing. I mean, it's been 60,000 years since they first started here, and it's probably been a very short period of time that we've been here, and to make sure that we make the appropriate steps as a community, I think, to commemorate and to recognise that they play a very important part of the community in which we live is significant for me, and I hope for the people of Launceston and beyond. So I really endorse the recommendation that is put before us today.
Councillor Sowd, I wonder if I could hand the chairing of the meeting over to you. I too stand to add my support to the document, and I think in some ways there's something quite special about this being tabled at the final meeting of our council term. In a way, it signifies the baton that we're handing over to the next cohort of councillors that will have responsibility for setting the way for the incoming 4 years. It shows the journey that we've been on over the last 4 years with our community, and I think the plan itself reflects the in-depth conversations that the CEO and we as councillors and members of staff have had with members of our Aboriginal community. We know, and we've learnt from Councillor Walker, that there is much for us to learn, to take from elders and members of the Aboriginal community, and it's not their responsibility to teach us. It's our responsibility to engage in meaningful and ongoing conversation so that we can grow as one moving forward into the future. And so I think it's really quite special that on the final meeting of this particular council, we hand over the baton with a release of a community report seeking an extensive community consultation undertaking that will then come back to the new council for full endorsement. And CEO, like others, I want to thank you for the work that you've undertaken, the rich and in-depth conversations with members of the Aboriginal community. And Councillor Walker and Councillor Dawkins, to you both, for the way that you have led us, particularly Councillor Walker, you've led us in this space, something I think that has seen us get to a far better outcome than we perhaps would have otherwise got to. And so it has taken some time, but I think the result speaks for itself. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Soward. Councillor Walker, over to you to close.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Of course, Launceston Council for a long time has, through our cultural activities at the QV Mag, interacted with the Aboriginal community. That's one aspect of Aboriginal community and society, but there are many others. And I suppose for people who are familiar with not just our Aboriginal community, the Palawa people, but Aboriginal people across Australia, they have their own cultural ways to do things. It's not always the same as ours, and that's completely appropriate for any culture to be able to explore and to express that. That's what we will learn as an organisation. I will ask not just people in our organisation, but people in our community to bear that in mind as we go through this process, that what we are addressing is understanding those differences and celebrating those differences, just as the Aboriginal community know that they have to understand and address the broader community, whether it's different levels of government, different organisations, businesses, whatever it may be. And that's an ongoing work for the Aboriginal community to interact and interrelate with the different levels of government and other things. So finally, in conclusion, I would like to just acknowledge that, as a previous speaker has said, this is not always an easy area to work in. There are differing opinions, and that's part of that learning experience. That's part of, for any of us, as I began by saying, different relationships that we have, they're not always perfect. And that's okay. You're allowed to explore those, and you don't have to agree with everything, but it's the intent to step forward that is important, and to meet and to discuss and to agree to differ and to do that again, and if necessary to do it again. That's the process that we're engaging in now, and it hopefully will be ongoing for all time for this council. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Let's put the vote. All those in favour raise their hand. That is unanimous and the motion is carried. I wonder if I could ask someone to move a motion that standing orders be suspended to allow for a presentation to be made to councillors who are not seeking election. The motion is moved by Councillor Dawkins, seconded by Councillor Harris. Councillor Dawkins and Councillor Harris will put the vote. All those in favour? That is carried. Standing orders have been suspended. Councillors, I wonder if I could take this opportunity to, on behalf of Council, to present a plaque to those councillors who have determined that they are not seeking re-election. I'm going to start with Councillor Daking. Councillor Daking, of course, who has been with us for 4 years, from 2018 through until 2022. Nick, we just want to say thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your effort, your skills, your contacts and your knowledge, the tenacity that you've brought to your role, also your no-nonsense approach to getting things done, but most importantly, your collegial way of working with us as a cohort. So would you please come forward and on behalf of the city, receive a plaque. Could we give Councillor Daking a round of applause? You can say a few words if you want to. Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy. I suppose I'd just like to start off with thanking our Mayor, who's obviously an apology today, but our Deputy, my fellow councillors, our CEO, our managers and our staff. It's been a privilege working with all of you. I think we've had a very cohesive council over the years. Some frustrations, but that's what you get with the council. And it's been healthy and enjoyable and as I said, a privilege for me. But ultimately, it's been an honour to serve our community together. I wish all of you the very best in the upcoming election. I really do. I hope to see all of you here. I'll be in that room, not this room. But now I look forward to spending much more time with my family in this beautiful city, and what a great day to go out. So look forward to having a beer with you soon. Thanks.
Next, I'd like to recognise Councillor Stosenchek, who has had 7 years of service at the City of Launceston, joining us in 2015. Karina, we would like to thank you most sincerely for your heart for our community, the way that you have interrogated issues and the contribution that you make, which often goes under the radar in terms of the way that you've interrogated the topics, the issues and the concerns that have faced our city. I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say the way that you care for your fellow councillors has been appreciated, and the way that you have shared a vision for us to work collegially and with a sense of purpose, where we set ego to the side to ensure the best outcomes are achieved, is something that we have valued most sincerely, as well as your friendship and regard for us individually. So councillors, would you join with me in congratulating Karina Stosenchek? Whilst Councillor Cox determined that he was retiring a number of weeks ago, it's appropriate that we recognise Jim's 11 years of service to this council, starting in 2011 with Councillor Mackenzie and myself. I'm sure you would agree that Councillor Cox's experience and passion for the city, his no-nonsense approach to getting the best outcome, but also his willingness to engage in meaningful and rich conversations and to add his weight to those has been appreciated. No one can deny that Jim is a very passionate man who wants the best for our city, and he has worked very hard over a number of years and a number of roles, and perhaps we've all learnt from his wisdom, his guidance and his willingness to share that with us at a variety of times. So in his absence, can we congratulate Jim Cox? It's now my pleasure to recognise someone who has had 13 years of service to the City of Launceston, including serving 4 years as the Deputy Mayor. And I'm speaking of Councillor Rob Soward. Rob, we would like to thank you for the way that you have worked so hard for the citizens of the City of Launceston. I'm sure fellow councillors would all agree that when we speak with members of our community, it is often Rob Soward who has picked up the telephone or has responded via email in order to get things done. Your contribution to the City of Launceston through your role as councillor, as Deputy Mayor and again as councillor over the last 4 years has been appreciated. You put the work in, before the meetings, you're prepared, you're diligent, and your work has been appreciated. So for 13 years of service, can we congratulate Rob Soward?
Just with emotion, I'm going to the wrong spot. I just wanted to start by thanking you, Deputy, for your kind words there, and start my final remarks around the table by acknowledging all of our staff, and that's all of our staff, not just in the building today, but over that 13-year period, for their help and support. And as I said at the time, when we first run for council, many of us, I mean this respectfully, think, yep, no worries, it won't take long to get up to speed, but it does take a long time. It does take a long time, and it's through the work of our staff, particularly Liz, who I'd love to see what her Fitbit says every day with how many steps she puts in chasing us around and following up on things for us. So that's something I've really appreciated. And as I've said to people before, often who've rung me and complained about something that's happened council-wise, none of our staff get out of bed wanting to do anything that's not for the best of the city. All of our people work hard all of the time. I also want to acknowledge, Deputy, that I've been privileged to sit on 4 councils with 4 different groups of 12 people. Some have had some commonality on the way through there, but under the leadership of one mayor. And I will be obviously speaking with the mayor prior to our finishing up, but just to acknowledge his leadership and also the work of those councillors I've sat on the council with over that time. Particularly, I want to just highlight a couple of things. I do miss him dearly, the late Ray Shipp, because Ray's 2 lots of involvement with the council and his knowledge and things. It was almost like every item there for a while. And I know, Deputy, when you got elected, when an item would come to council, former Alderman Shipp would talk about riding his raft down the gorge in 1950 or something, or we went and looked at a development application in Newstead and he told me how his brother hit this 6 over the tree at the NTCA ground. So, I really appreciated that in my early years. A couple of highlights I wanted to share with you and those listening. For me, I reckon in anything you do, whether it's council work, doesn't matter, when you do something, the fact that 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 years later, people don't remember who did it, says to me that it's a good thing. It's not, Rob's idea or Jim's idea or Bill's idea. It's just an idea that's transitioned into something. When I first got elected to council, one of the things that was really important to me was working on getting the Christmas tree back in the mall. Now, there might be people here who go, oh, hasn't it always been there? Those of us that have been around a while remember the Christmas tree we had got burnt down. We didn't have one because some idiot burnt it down. I brought a notice of motion to council that really just saw some money brought forward to work with City Prom and the Chamber on that tree going in, because that to me is really important. It's a very important thing for our city. Something else I want to share that always provides me with a bit of humour. I remember going away, and it's a lot of years ago now, just on a holiday over the break, and came back and brought a question to our workshop, in the workshop room, where I asked about the possibility of us looking and investigating at getting a green bin, because there was something I'd seen when I was walking around the city on the mainland, 15 years ago, 12 years ago, I should say. And someone said, where would you put it? Where would you put this bin? If you had a third bin, where would you put it? Well, it wouldn't fit in your garage. And when this developed and it's worked its way through to the green bins we have today, I remember when it went online on the Examiner website, people saying that very thing. What a stupid idea it was. Where would you put this third bin? What a crazy idea. So things change. And the last thing that I wanted to mention that is a highlight for me was the notice of motion that I brought to council that saw the City Prom review and the restructure. That was something that was really important to me, and it's something that's worked its way through to fruition now. I also enjoyed the individual help offered to ratepayers. Like others, I want to wish all candidates who are standing in the election well, including all of the people in this room and all of those out there. But I want to just say, in closing, a couple of challenges that I've noticed when you're around a while, things change. The big change that I see now is a community, not just this one, but the community that wants stuff but doesn't always understand getting that balance right with being able to pay for it. That's something that's really important. Understanding that there's often ongoing costs that are hidden and not understood. I was Kings Meadows a month ago, and I had a family I know very well stop me and say how wonderful Riverbend Park was. And they said, why don't you build something like that out here? I said, Kings Meadows, like it's 10 minutes from the other one. Yeah, like a $6 million park that costs us all that money to maintain. So I don't think people get that. And the last thing, I guess, where I hope the shift occurs, I see, if I go back, the Examiner, and I use them, letters to the editor always used to be a great way to generate conversation and ideas, and many of us, me included, prior to getting on council, use that as a way of raising issues and raising points. That seems to have gone by the wayside now, and there are people who sit out there behind their keyboard with every story that appears about council with a comment. My disappointment was that none of those people put their hand up and nominated to stand for election. They've got all the answers, but they're not prepared to come out and be brave like all of you and the other 27 people. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the opportunity, and I thank everyone who have supported me over the past 13 years. Thank you.
So should the Mayor have been here, I would have been standing up now and thanking the Mayor for his contribution to our community. And I would start by, first of all, thanking the Mayoress, Lyndall, for her unwavering support of Albert and the community generally. You've heard Albert describe the relationship that they have together and how it's been a team and how she has willingly attended all manner of events, but she's attended them with class and with great distinction and contribution herself. Herself, a distinguished educator who's interested in young people and the arts and community development. And so on behalf of Council, there will be a small gift that will be presented to Lyndall Van Zetten for her 17 years of commitment to her husband, but her 15 years in the role that she's played in supporting the Mayor for his work. So could we recognise Lyndall Van Zetten, first of all? And then I would present and will present the plaque to our Mayor for 15 years of outstanding service, 17 years as a councillor. You've all heard the way that Albert has reflected on his time in local government as being part of a team, as being part of councils that have worked collectively to achieve great outcomes with people at the core. And so I would say that Albert has been a great leader in the way that he has been able to tread that role of leading our community and leading the expectations that come from the role of Mayor, but also being a diligent and very hard-working member of council. He attends all manner of events. He's always willing to support and meet with members of our community. And of course, his proud legacy is that of Riverbend Park, and we hope in the years to come, the recreational hub in the northern suburbs. You've heard Albert himself speak of the power of people and sitting down and listening to the stories that individuals bring. And I would say that the story that Albert Van Zetten has brought to our city is one of hard-working stewardship. And our city will long recall the efforts that he has given as councillor in what has been a changing and certainly over our last 4 years, challenging time in leadership. So again, we'll present Albert with a small gift of his contribution to the role of Mayor in the city, but I'm sure you would join with me in congratulating Albert for the way that he has led with distinction over the last 15 years. And so finally, it seems fitting in the Mayor's absence, CEO, for me on behalf of Council to thank you and indeed the executive leadership team and all members of staff for your unwavering support for our community. Over the last 4 years, I think the Mayor would say that we have had a unified council that have brought their separate issues and ideas, but that they've worked in a way that we've been able to achieve great outcomes for our community. And last council meeting, when we endorsed our end of term report, we all spoke of the diversity of things that had been achieved over the last 4 years. And within that report were things that all of us had championed and advocated and worked hard to achieve. So we want to thank CEO, you, the leadership team, but indeed all staff for the way that over the last 4 years, staff have worked so hard, so tirelessly in very challenging COVID environment and thus a challenging financial environment to achieve such great things for our city. I'm sure the Mayor would thank personally his administration staff over the 15 years, together with the media team who so brilliantly support him. And I think, CEO, he would say to you and to the other general managers that he has worked with a sincere and very deep thank you for all that we've been able to achieve together. So, councillors, could we congratulate the CEO and the staff? Could we now please have someone move that standing orders be resumed? Councillor Harris, seconded Councillor Dawkins. All those in favour raise their hand. That is carried. So now we have a motion to move into closed council for the reasons listed. It is moved Councillor Soward, seconded Councillor Harris. All those in favour? That is all councillors present. Motion is carried. We will move into closed council. And at 4:30 exactly, we come out of closed session. Moved Councillor Soward, seconded Councillor Harris. We resolved to report 17.1 closed council minutes, 17.2 local government enterprise resource planning solution, and 17.3 Launceston City Heart project. All those in favour raise their hand. All those against, nil. That's all councillors present. The motion is carried. Can I say thank you so much for your hard work over the last 4 years to each and every one of you, and myself included. It's been a pleasure working as part of a team. And, for those who are not re-nominating, we thank you for your service. We wish you all the best the next part of your journey. And to those of us who are re-nominating, we look forward to seeing what the future holds. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Meeting closed at 4:31.